Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It is time to go back all the way before the dev server, and yes, that is how busy the last few weeks have been. And if you didn't see the sneak peek streams, the English one and also the Russian one, on the Russian one BVD said something interesting. He talked about the idea of the MiG-25 being worked on and coming to the game in the future, but probably not in the same way. A lot of other stuff has turned up, and that to me is just crazy to hear, and also something, at least for me, that I am interested in seeing. We talked about the MiG-25 last year, made a big video about its history, where it came from, and also why it was so feared. And then also, if you want to see a really good video on the history of the MiG-25, Mustard, who is another YouTuber, made a fantastic one on it. But if you want a quick synopsis of the MiG-25, it's this. Russia made a vehicle which was taking the world by storm. It was incredibly fast, breaking all speed records, and basically everybody else was like, how the hell are they doing this? Like, what is actually happening with this thing, and how are they doing it? But they just didn't have any idea what was going on. And this obviously spooked Western intelligence, because it was in the middle of the Cold War and Russia had just this insane vehicle. So the MiG-25 got shown at a Moscow air show in 1967, and they showed that it had the all-weather interceptor capability and also Mach 2.5, which is just nuts. And this kick-started a lot of nations into, oh my god, what are we going to do? Not just against this thing, but how can we make a competitor? And what ended up happening in America is they made probably the best plane of its generation by far that basically has ever existed, the F-15, which just went on to trounce everything. Then in 1976, what ended up happening is a Russian pilot ended up landing a MiG-25P in Japan. And the actual plane was then able to be looked at and kind of gone through, and then they realized, oh, this isn't really the monster that we thought it was. Basically, it had a huge issue with maintenance, and also the engines really did not have a great life behind them. So it was interesting to see that the Russians had made a vehicle that was incredibly quick, that was a vehicle that had a lot going for it, but also had a bunch of problems too. But, as I said, it catapulted the American aviation industry way ahead of the Russian one, and hasn't really looked back, which is kind of interesting. So why is it weird to hear that the MiG-25 is going to be coming to War Thunder? The basic reason is the vehicle doesn't really fit in the game. It's a vehicle which has some interesting factors, but nothing that really fits. It's super fast, okay? It's a very, very quick vehicle. It can go above Mach 2.5 whenever it generally feels like it. It has very large engines which are attached to it, and it was basically designed in an interceptor role. And what we've found with a lot of vehicles in War Thunder which are from this period of time, whether they be Soviet or whether they be American, they just haven't been added to the game because they are built for one reason only: take off, accelerate fast, really go, really go towards the target, and then use missiles, usually larger ones, which are not as maneuverable, to be able to knock out that target. And when you look at War Thunder, vehicles like that just don't really work. That's why we don't have stuff like the Voodoo in the game, for example, and also other platforms which just rely on missiles. But the MiG-25, since it's being worked on, this one is heavily reliant on missiles in the form of the R-40. Now, there are versions of the MiG-25 that use the R-60s, and technically also the all-aspect versions, the R-60Ms, but mainly the armament on this was the R-40. And the MiG-25 was very good at going in a straight line. It was very good at accelerating. It was not good at turning. It was not good at doing anything when it came to maneuverability, and these missiles are the same. They have a maximum overload of around about 8 Gs. The R-40 is a semi-active radar homing missile, or at least the major version of it was. There was other versions of it which did have access to different seekers, so maybe they could add those, but the main thing about it is it's just not a good missile for the game. right? So you have a vehicle which doesn't have a gun. It doesn't really have any capabilities apart from being very fast, and then it has access to these missiles which are a little bit sloppy. And this is the problem with it. Like it's a vehicle that doesn't fit because of its different capabilities. If you base it on its speed, it should be the top BR of the game, but its missiles would not be good enough, and neither would its radar, to be honest, because its radar would be very much outdated. So if you put it a bit lower in BR, let's say, I don't know, around 11.0, maybe 12.0, it still has the same problem of not really being able to do anything and just being fast. And if you put it lower, then it becomes a vehicle like stuff like the B-57 used to be, like the F-104 continues to be, where you just have complete dominance of the battle if you know how to play it, because you are too fast in order for people to actually engage you. But also at the same time, you'll be very limited in your capabilities because of the maneuverability of the thing. So it's just one of those that is odd, right? It was made for a specific thing, kind of like the early Lightnings, right? So the Lightning we have in game is the Lightning F6, I believe. Let's just check real quick. Yeah, the Lightning F6. The reason why Gaijin picked the Lightning F6 is because the earlier Lightnings were not designed with the the extra fuel in it, right? Instead, they were designed to be a dart, which would just go upwards, intercept the bombers that are coming in, and then they would go down again. That's why they had a very, very limited fuel capacity. But the F6 is a bit more of a chunky monkey. It's got more fuel, so therefore it makes more sense when it comes to War Thunder. With the MiG-25, it was designed for that first role, but at the same time, fuel isn't really the huge issue. The major issue is just the fact it just can't maneuver, and that is, a real problem. Now, the other part of it, which is interesting, is there was obviously the talk about a game mode which would be based around like strategic bombers, right? Like they were testing out how to bring these in, and then you could see in the files as well that we showed there was a bunch of like these objects to destroy. So maybe. I know a lot of people are thinking from like the strategic bombers setup, like the B-52 or the B-36 or whatever that is looking at, or maybe like the Tu-95. What if the game mode is actually you intercepting them with stuff like MiG-25s? So instead of being in the standard matchmaking, you play basically the role that the MiG-25 was designed to do. And that, I think, would actually be kind of cool, and it would be interesting. I don't know how much of a lifespan something like that would have, though. I think it would get kind of boring after a while, especially if you're facing AI all the time. But it's at least something interesting that would be different from the standard idea. Now, there are a bunch of variants of the MiG-25. There is also a massively improved kind of variant of it, which I believe is called the MiG-31, which, could actually fit in the game a lot better than the MiG-25, but that wasn't the one that was talked about. The one specifically was the MiG-25. So I'm just really interested to see how they're going to do it. I'd like to also hear opinions from you guys. How do you think they're going to end up adding in this vehicle? How do you see them doing it? And what is going to be like? Is it going to be in standard matchmaking? Are they going to make a specific mode for it? Is it going to be like a custom battle vehicle? What is the story of the MiG-25? How the hell are they going to do it? I would love to be in those meetings, because when I look at this, if they can add this in, and if it is at least usable, that opens the door to many other vehicles to actually fit in the game. There's a lot of weird Soviet interceptors which were based around these really bad missiles in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. There was a lot of American vehicles that also were based around stuff like the AIM-4 Falcon, for example, or even just, like standard missiles that we see. Stuff like the Voodoo, for example, would be really cool at some point to see, and would also, add another vehicle to the Century series. So for me, I really hope they can make this work, and I'm sure they're trying to. And even if it doesn't work fully, even if it's just like a piece of eye candy, Kind of like stuff like the F-117 and others, I would also be fine with that too. You know, I just don't want it to take over games, because obviously that would be a bit of a problem. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.